Join me. It is your destiny. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Sci-Fi Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are doing the top 10 science fiction films of all time. Got my trusty Star Trek shirt here. I got my buddy Han joining us.
Han Solo. I'm Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
And let's get to it, shall we? This is in response to BRONCOJUGGALOTALKSMOVIES. He did his top 10 sci-fi films of all times, and I figured I would follow suit and do my response video with my top 10. So let's get to it, shall we? Without further ado, in at number 10 is going to be Escape from New York. Yes, directed by the legendary John Carpenter, and starring Kurt Russell in the role of Snake Plissken. What an iconic character. Amazing, amazing film. One of my favorite of the apocalyptic future type films, you know? Or should I say post-apocalyptic. Alright, in at number 9 is going to be Blade Runner, starring Harrison Ford, a legendary film directed by Ridley Scott. I felt that film set the tone of a bleak future for all other science fiction films to follow. So many have copied that, you know, that bleak futuristic feel of a science fiction film. So many have copied that, you know, with the flying cars and you know, the robots and it's just an amazing film. It's such an excellent film starring the legendary Harrison Ford in one of his best roles as Decker. So number 8 is going to be War of the Worlds, the original classic from 1953, based on the H.G. Wells novel, and that, you know, that classic radio broadcast, you know. Such an amazing film. It's what I feel the best alien invasion science fiction film. It's just a great example of what I feel an alien invasion would be like, you know. That's what I picture it would be like, you know, if they came to just, you know, hostile takeover, you know. That's what I picture as being blasting us with the laser beams and their little ships coming in at full force. I just think it's a great film. It's just a classic. Number 7 is going to be The Matrix, starring Keanu Reeves in absolutely one of the most influential science fiction films of all times, especially when it comes to, like, special effects in a science fiction film. How many times has that been duplicated? And of course that, you know, that wire fighting kung fu technique that has been used in so many martial arts films and so many action films. It's just so replicated throughout science fiction history. Just a classic film. It's just amazing. Can't deny the impact that film left. Next up is going to be, once again, John Carpenter with The Thing. Such an awesome science fiction film. Again, starring Kurt Russell in the role of MacReady. Such an awesome film. The legendary creature effects by Rob Bottin cannot be understated. When the film came out, it didn't do very well in theaters because it came out around the same time as E.T. and, you know, that lovable film from Steven Spielberg, of course, is going to get all the attention. But it certainly has become a classic nowadays. You know, everybody hails it as being one of the greatest science fiction films of all times, and they are right. It's just amazing. So next up, that's right, we gotta have Star Trek in the mix, and that is The Wrath of Khan. Star Trek II, yes, the sequel. The original, the motion picture, was not as good as it could have been, you know. It was very slow-paced, and, you know, wasn't a whole lot going on. But the sequel really upped the ante in every way. It was just an excellent sequel, great action, amazing performances. You had an amazing villain in Khan, played by Ricardo Montalban, and you had Jim Kirk at his best, you had Spock at his best, and of course you had that legendary scene between Kirk and Spock, you know, with the death of Spock, you know. I always will be and always shall be your friend, you know. Very heartwarming. It tugs at the heartstrings, you know. Amazing film. Next up, we are going to have The Terminator. That's right, the original classic from 1984, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and directed by the great James Cameron. A lot of people would pick Terminator 2 Judgment Day, but I stick by the original. I think it's such a compelling film. I absolutely love the soundtrack. I love the horror elements of it. It almost feels like a slasher film at times. And I really love Arnold as the badass killer Terminator, the cyborg from hell, you know. He's the ultimate killing machine, and that's when I like Arnold at his best. And this is his best role ever, in my opinion. He was just born to play that role. Next up is going to be Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's right, the 1978 version starring Donald Pleasance, which is what I feel the best version of that story. It's such a classic science fiction story that has been redone so many times, but in my opinion the most compelling and the scariest version is definitely the 1978 version, with Donald Pleasance and, not Donald Pleasance, I'm sorry, Donald Sutherland. And of course you had such a great cast in that film. You had Jeff Goldblum, just an awesome, awesome movie. It's very scary. You have Brooke Adams in the film. You have Veronica Cartwright. It's just the tension that builds throughout the film, and it just gives you such a claustrophobic feeling, you know, that we're being taken over. Just an awesome movie. Next up is going to be the immortal, the classic, the legendary Alien from 1979. The original classic from Ridley Scott, starring none other than Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Yaphet Kotto. Just an awesome cast, and they're all at their very best in this film. And that's why I feel this original classic is better than the sequel, 1986 Aliens. A lot of people pick that over the original classic. To me, there's no better than the original Alien. It's absolutely scary as hell. The effects are great and still hold up to this day. The set pieces are just phenomenal. And this movie holds up today 100%. And we're in 2019 now, and this still holds up to this day. A film from 1979. Just an incredible classic. Number 1 is going to be Star Wars: A New Hope. That's right, to me that is the greatest science fiction film of all time. A lot of people would pick Empire Strikes Back. Some people think that is the superior film, but to me it always has been and always will be A New Hope. This film right here, I just love the everything about it. I love all the characters, and I love it how they first meet up. I just love the story. It's so much fun. To me, it's a lot more fun than Empire Strikes Back. It's a much more dark sequel. Don't get me wrong, Empire Strikes Back is brilliant. It's one of the greatest sequels of all time. But it doesn't beat A New Hope. A New Hope is the greatest science fiction film of all time. From the legendary director George Lucas. Just seeing these characters come to life on the big screen, these lovable characters that you just want to be a part of their lives, you want to be part of this adventure. It's just a great sense of wonder, everything about it. The legendary characters, the great performances from Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and of course you had Ben Kenobi as played by the great Alec Guinness. And of course the legendary, the greatest villain of all time in my opinion, that is Darth Vader, as played by James Earl Jones, who does the voice, and David Prowse, who dons the cape and cowl and the mask. That legendary mask, that legendary voice, such an iconic villain, and everything about this movie is iconic. The Millennium Falcon, it's just such a phenomenal film, and in my opinion, is the greatest science fiction film ever made. So guys, that's it. Thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Sci-Fi Corner. Tune in and blast off.